Hey everybody. Well, I drove all the way out here to Saltdale and forgot my selfie stick. So you're gonna have to see my big old melon in full size. Sorry about that. But I want to do a piece on Saltdale. I'm going to be posting a piece on the lower end of the Lone Pine Branch, Owenyo Branch, Jawbone, whatever you prefer to call it, here pretty soon. I'll link that to this when I get that done because they go hand in hand with each other. I just didn't want to put this piece on the piece with the Lone Pines. It would have taken too long. Interesting little place out here northeast of Mojave, about I don't know, 7 or 8 miles east of Jawbone Canyon. And around 1911 they started mining minerals in here. Southern Pacific installed a spur here in, I think it said 1914. They started shipping sulfur out of here, and they eventually built an entire mill facility here. I don't recall when that was, but I know that during World War I is when it peaked in production. And there was a post office out here. It was own little community. I don't know how many people ever actually lived here for it to have a post office, but they ceased operations here in 1975, and sometime in the mid-80s they came and tore out all the buildings. I remember when the mill and all that was still standing out here. It was long abandoned, but it had its own little narrow gauge railroad that connected it to the mill in the middle of the railroad tracks. And so let's go down there and check out the ruins and see what we can see. All right, looking out over Koehn Dry Lake. And this is where Saltdale used to be. This facility right here, this little scale, I'm sure is for the trucks that are loading out of the facility there. I have absolutely no idea what they ship out of there. I know they bring it in rail cars and ship it out in trucks. So I'm not sure what goes on out there. But you can see way out there, you can see the posts and levees out on the lake bed where the works for Saltdale once were. We'll head down that way. And again, this is Koehn Dry Lake. It is about 20 miles northeast of Mojave. All right, move down in here a little bit. This is obviously where, I'm assuming this is where the office was, where for the facility. Still got the red tile in there. It was probably a nice looking building at one time. I can find no pictures of it. The only pictures I can find are of the mill and the facilities out on the lake bed. But anyway, somebody built a fire pit there, never used it. But obviously the office, there's where the toilet was, I guess, or a sink. I'm hoping they had a toilet out here. But looking at the loading facility over there, that is what we saw from up above and out on the dry lake. This is a piece of a bygone era. Obviously, this was the dump. Like I said, this place has been abandoned since 1975, so I'm sure it's completely picked through. And I'm not a collector, so I wouldn't pick through it anyway, but I don't know. Somebody want to come in here and dig around, they might find something cool out here, an old bottle or something, I don't know. But anyway, this was the dump for Saltdale. Okay, this is the former roadbed for the little narrow gauge railroad that they used here at Saltdale, and it comes right up here. I don't know how extensive the switching facility at the mill was. I only have one picture I've ever seen of the mill, and I'll put that in here. But based on the background in that photograph, the geography of the mountains behind it. It was taken from about this angle. Let's walk over there. All right, we've walked over here. This is the only remaining structure of any kind. I can see this old retaining wall or whatever it was. There again, looking at the background, this was probably where the mill was. There's a lot of busted up large pieces of concrete around here. Right there and right there. And then this is yucky stuff here is all piled up there. But this has all been pretty much scraped clean. But there again, I'll stick that picture in here and I'll see what you guys think. But I'm pretty sure this is where the mill once stood. And we've come just a little ways up there, and this is the roadbed for the old narrow gauge railroad. And the reason I thought this was interesting is I see stuff like this concrete pad here and this one right here, and it was obviously fenced in with a nice fence. And I see stuff like this and I always wonder, you know, they built this for a reason. Gosh, there might even have been a flagpole right there. I don't know. Maybe the old couch they used to chill on. But I always wonder, you know, what was here. And like I said, they built this for a reason, and somebody was really satisfied with it when they built it, and it served its purpose. I have absolutely no idea what that purpose was. I just find it interesting. Okay, back here, drove over a little ways. There's the abandoned railroad over there. So we're just right over here. Obviously, there were some significant wooden structures around here. I don't know if they were buildings. I don't know if that's wood that they scraped out from the ponds, but it actually looks like most of that structural work in those ponds is all still there. So I have no idea what this is. A lot of corrugated metal, banding that they, I'm sure, used for their shipping stuff. I don't know. As I said, I never came down in here. I kind of wish I had now. All the buildings were still here. But gosh, 35 years ago, who knew? All right, moving on. Okay, we have moved down to the collection ponds themselves. These are the ones further to the north, but as you can see, this was a pretty extensive facility. There's the rail cars up there. You can see we've come down a ways, looking out over the dry lake, but there were a lot of these collection ponds. I guess that's what they were called. And so it was a pretty extensive operation, I guess. I don't know anything about this stuff, but it looks pretty extensive to me. I thought I'd walk up here to the edge of one of these ponds and get a better shot of what went into doing all this. There's a lot of structural work in wood, retaining walls, and these access paths. I guess that's what they would have been between the ponds. I came out here a couple of years ago and did some still photography, and it was much earlier in the year, January or February if I'm not mistaken. And there was still a lot of water sitting in these ponds. It was kind of cool because it kind of gave you an idea of what it probably looked like while they were actually operating this back in the day. But you can see that these ponds they extend way out into probably a third of the way out into the lake and go all the way over there. And it's probably, the corner out there's probably a quarter of a mile at least from where we are. And they extend out that way about the same distance. So it's a pretty good sized facility. Let's go over here and check out the old ruins of the narrow gauge roadbed. Here's one of the little spurs of the old narrow gauge railroad. They used little gas-powered Plymouth locomotives to pull these around. I guess locomotives is technically the right word, but they were pretty small. You see a drain pipe coming from one of the other ponds, I guess. And I don't know if this is where this terminated or if it went further back towards that pond at one time. I don't know. But anyway, part of the roadbed. And some, I doubt if these were reclamation ponds. They're small and don't have any works around them. They're probably just for drainage or something, I guess. I don't know. I have no idea. All speculation. Okay, we moved over to this other part of the abandoned narrow gauge. When I was out here a couple years ago, as I said, doing still photography, I took a great picture of this. The sky was much darker blue. I said it was a different time of the year. It was a really, really cool picture, and I enlarged it and entered it in the Kern County Fair. I took it down to Henley's, who takes all that stuff to the fair. The photograph never made it to the fair, and Henley's said they didn't have it, so I don't know if an employee took it or if someone at the fair took it or what. But I still have the photograph. I can have it re-enlarged, and maybe one of these days I'll do that and stick it in the Kern County Fair again, since I got cheated last time. Knowing the way they judge things at the Kern County Fair, it probably wouldn't have done any good, but I always like people seeing my work. I haven't got to enter anything in the last couple of years because I simply haven't had time to mess with it. One of the things I will be able to do in retirement is work on my photography, maybe even sell some pictures. Got a lot of train stuff, and we'll see. But this is the abandoned railroad going the other way, and it goes way out there to that levee over there. I'll drive over there and see what's over there. All right, moved over here to these ponds to the west side of the facility, and you can see here there's another piece of the abandoned road, another little switch that was right there that went off there. And it does look like that these tracks originally went either, well, they obviously didn't go into the collection ponds, but right up to the edge of them. And this one here, as you can see here, if you line that up, it follows this road right here to that opening. It was the same way at the other ponds where we were earlier, where we saw those road beds leading towards those ponds. So I guess they did go all the way in. Let's walk up there and see what's up. All right, walked over a little ways and noticed that this pond still has a considerable amount of standing water. This is, I'm sure, pretty much the solution that they used to take off of here to make their salt with. But it hasn't rained in a long time, and probably since March. This is early October, and still standing water over there. But I wanted to show these there's considerable wooden structures out here, these retaining walls. An old building out there. Not sure what that was. I don't want to walk out there, it's a long way. It's hot. That's looking off back towards the east, back where we were over there just a minute ago. But looks here like where this entryway is, actually somebody built little ramps to drive vehicles back in there. I don't know if that was when the place was still working or if that's something somebody did later to collect salts. I have no idea. But anyway, I just wanted to show that this is Still got a lot of solution in it. A lot of structural work on all these. There's standing water there. And something else I wanted to point out was over there you can see those, looks like a subdivision, those graded roads over there. I don't know what that is. That when we first started coming out in the desert in 1974, racing our dirt bikes and riding them around and stuff, that was already out there. So I'm not sure there's a house out there or some kind of a dwelling. And so if anybody knows what that is, drop it in the comments below. I'd be interested in knowing what that is. But anyway, that is Cantil. There, I did a walk around of Cantil some time back. I will link that in the description below as well. All right, moving on. Okay, I decided to go ahead and walk out here a little closer to that building over there. I'm not going to go to it. It doesn't look like you can actually really access it. It's kind of out in the middle of this pond right here. But there's some piping here. I'm sure it was probably to move water from one place to another. You know, they didn't count on rainfall to fill these ponds up with and create all this. And out there, you can see there used to be a pole line. That pole right there against that building, and then there's the bases of poles going all the way out across there. And I'm sure that was the electric service. You can see the bases of poles over on that walkway there. And you can also see over at the corner of that levee, wooden planking. Look like walkways that they built. That one goes over there, and there's two more, one at the end of this levee and another one at the next levee over, and they both go to that building. So I don't know what that building was, but must have been semi-important. Wanted to build it out here and have all those walkways going to it. There's probably one that went from that corner over to it as well. I don't see any ruins, but oh yeah, I do. There are some over there. But anyway, you can see a lot of walkways out here, a lot of fencing, a lot of wood structure. Pretty involved place. Something I want to bring up before I leave here is if you're ever out here, you want to come out in the desert and explore places like this, dry lakes. There were a lot of old salt mining facilities in some of these places. You can see here where somebody walked off down here, got out there about 20 feet, and started sinking in the mud. Especially places like this, a facility like this, and this one in particular, obviously this still has a lot of standing water in it. You don't want to walk out there. That is the definition of quicksand. You probably won't sink up to your head and die, but it would certainly ruin your day. And even the ones that appear to be dry, even it is early October, and right now, and there's still water out here, standing water, and this here obviously is still very wet underneath. You can see those muddy holes there. But even if it appears dry, and it, for all intents and purposes is dry underneath, you still need to be careful if you're walking on these little alkali flats, because the top is very crusty and crunchy, and you don't want to step onto something you think is solid and have the ground give way underneath your feet, cause you to lose your balance. You're probably not going to fall and kill yourself, but I can't imagine that falling on surfaces like that over there is going to feel good on your knees or your elbows or your hands. So there's a lot of like here, there's a lot of old wood structures and who knows what kind of crap's laying around with nails and old rusty pipes. So always be careful when you're exploring these places. They can have their little hidden hazards, stuff that you don't see, that you wouldn't think about. So always be aware, not just on dry lakes, but anywhere. Whenever you're exploring this whole stuff, be aware of your surroundings and be very careful about where you put your feet. It's always nice to go home from your little explorations and have a story to tell about the place and not about your injuries. All right, well, that'll conclude my little tour and exploration of the history and the ruins of the facility out at Saltdale. It's interesting to note that this was never actually called Saltdale by anyone but the railroad. The Fremont Salt Company owned it originally, and they sold it to a place called the Consolidated Salt Company, and they sold it to the Long Beach Salt Company. Saltdale was just the name of the spur that the Southern Pacific used to serve it. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any comments about it, leave them below. And as usual, like, subscribe, share. And if you have any ideas about something else you'd like to see, let me know in the comments below or shoot me an email. And we will see you all later.